Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for not being with you in Delhi today. Uh, my name is Pierre Mazeau from Paris, France. I'm not an MD, but my background is human resources and corporate social responsibility, and I will talk about the modern forms of occupational distress today. First, I would like to thank Dr. Russell de Souza and IIOPM for the opportunity to present this talk. And let's begin with a case and a situation you may recognize. So let me introduce to you Kate. She's 42. She is a senior engineer, and as you see, she is exhausted, disengaged, struggling. And 3 years ago, we would probably have called this burnout. And now, today, we are not so sure. Is it burnout, brownout, moral injury, AI, anxiety, quitting, or simply depression? And this is the challenge we face today and the purpose of my talk. So, what this talk covers? Well, two parts. First, I will try to name and organize what's out there. Some it is solid science, but some it is just vocabulary that escaped from social media into the clinic. And second, a shorter half on what we can actually do about it, the clinical and organizational response. Um, just to show this is not a niche problem. Through this Gallup to 2025, you can see that 58% of workers say they are struggling or suffering. And the daily occupational stress by region is higher in the North America with 49%, which is very huge. But in the other regions, it's still very high. So it's not just a Western concern, it's a worldwide concern. Of course, these numbers are not very precise, they are self reported, but um, they tell you the scale of the problem, even if it hasn't been labeled yet. So, the evolution of occupational distress. So, many scientists and physicians have worked on this since Karasek in 1979 on the demand control model distress from high demands with low control, Segrist, 1996, effort reward imbalance, distress when effort is not matched by reward. Of course, Maslach and Leiter, 2001, with the burnout, three-dimensional burnout syndrome, later coded by WHO as ICD-11, and it's the only one which is now labeled officially. And then things have accelerated with COVID. COVID gave us Zoom fatigue and isolation. Generative AI in 2023 gave us a generally new anxiety, not fear of overwork, but fear of obsolescence. And also hybrid work gave us this blurred, always on state. So there are often new concepts that are coming now. So rather than treating every new term and as its own syndrome, I've tried with the help of from existing literature to sort out them into four axes. I offer this as a map, not, of course, a diagnostic instrument. These four axes are um, demand resource balance. Do demands exceed the personal resources? And the associated syndrome could be burnout or technostress. Meaning and purpose is the work experienced as purposeful or empty. Associated symptom, bore out, burnout, existential distress. We will come back later on this. Ethics and value. Can the person act according to their values? Associated symptom, moral injury, eco-anxiety at work. And the last one, boundary and connectivity. Where does work end and recovery begins? And associated symptom and Zoom fatigue, digital presenteeism, quiet quitting, productivity paranoia. So you see that all these notions can overlap also. So burnout, you know it far better than I do, so I'll be brief. Three dimensions: exhaustion, cynicism, reduced accomplishment. And we can say it's an occupational phenomenon, not really a psychiatric diagnosis, as it's not included in DSM. Everything else than burnout I will be talking about is built on much thinner ice. Brownout is the opposite failure mode, not exhaustion like in burnout, but flatness. People are still functioning, still performing, but the meaning has drained out. The example of Diderot's work on lost recognition or Graeber's on bullshit jobs. Bore Out by Roslin and Verber in 2007. It can be defined as a chronic understimulation rather than overload. I mention it mainly because I've often seen it misread as burnout, which sends the intervention in exactly the wrong direction. You don't want to tell someone to rest less than what they need is more challenge. Let's come now with a social term. Will qualify it by social term. Quiet quitting. It popped up in 2022. Definitely not a diagnosis, but I think it's clinically interesting precisely because it's ambiguous. And quiet quitting is also, I put two related concerns, which is quite firing. Manager indirectly push an employee to resign through withheld feedback, stalled promotion exclusion, and quite striving, which is a positive response, employee proactively reacts. Now we can go through some emerging concepts. The first is about ethics and organizational change with moral injury. I think it's borrowed from military and healthcare psychiatry, now showing up wherever someone can't act according to their professional ethics. There is at least a validated instrument here, the moral injury event scale. Second one, eco anxiety at work. I'm seeing this especially in younger professionals in energy, transport, sustainability roles where personal values and employers' practice collide. The last one is purely social, not clinical, but it's a strong driver, productivity paranoia. The next slide is about emerging concepts related to digital work, which is also something relatively new. Zoom fatigue. Zoom fatigue is reasonably well documented now, especially after the COVID period. Sustained eye contact, reduced nonverbal cues, no natural breaks between calls. Digital presentism, never psychology leaving work, is more as a social description, of course, and diagnosis. And a really new one, AI anxiety, is barely 1 year old. It's a strange one clinically because AI simultaneously removes some tasks and adds new cognitive demand, comparisons, uncertainty, the sense of being evaluated against a machine. Of course, as it is still debated, there are some current controversy, especially burnout versus DSM diagnosis. There was attempts to enter burnout into DSM, but it always failed. Burnout versus depression. Bianchi and colleagues have shown heavy symptoms overlap, and I guess most of you already run both an MBI and a PHQ-9 or BDI in practice rather than trusting clinical impression alone. Brownout, no formal recognition, useful narrative, weak diagnosis. And for me, the risk is over medicalizing what might just be normal workplace conflicts or a legitimate boundary. I tried to put in a slide what could be a differential diagnosis, even if the term diagnosis is not really the good one. This is my attempt at a decision aid, not as a validated algorithm. Of course, the logic. I identify the dominant mechanisms before choosing the intervention. This presentation overlap constantly in real patients. So this is about identifying the most likely driver, never about diagnostic exclusion. So you can read it, the exercise on burnout, brownout, bore out, moral injury, and AI anxiety. Let's go now to the solutions, I would say. On prevention, ISO 45003 now gives us an actual standard for psychological risk assessment, which is new and I think underused. Screening with MBI, CBI, UWES routinely, not only when someone is already in crisis, is a single change I'd advocate for more strongly to any organizations. The individual level prevention, of course, could be interesting. Quickly, CBT for exhaustion and negative appraisal as a reasonable meta-analytic base. MBSR shows a moderate effect on stress and anxiety. and referral to occupational medicine or psychiatry remains the standard when mood and or anxiety symptoms are prominent. Sleep, physical activity, digital detox, routines, boundary settings, modest but consistent evidence, nothing revolutionary. Organizational redesign. So I think this one should be interesting. On the organizational side, workload calibration, more autonomy and voice in how schedules and processes are shaped, and role clarity to prevent the drift that produces burnout. Ethics, AI, and future challengings. On AI specifically, proactive, honest change management communication seems to reduce uncertainty driven anxiety more than anything else we've tried. Support structures for skill transitions, realistic expectation on response times, and clear ethical guidelines for AA use. So I retain 6 key messages from today. Name it precisely. Burnout, bore out are distinct conditions, not interchangeable labels. Not all distress is illness. Quiet quitting, presenteeism, and leavism are organizational patterns, not medical diagnosis, of course. Prevention beats course. Early signs, presenteeism, leavism, quiet quitting should trigger action before escalation. Support the individual, CBT, MBSR, sleep hygiene, clear boundaries and timely referral when symptoms are clinical. Redesign the organization, workload calibration, autonomy, role clarity and routine, psychological risk surveillance. Screen, don't guess. Validated uh, tools must be used. So let's go back to Kate. She seems better now. But in fact, Kate did not have just a single disorder. She illustrates overlapping mechanism rather than multiple diagnoses. She presented, in fact, burnout associated with depressive symptoms, moral injury related to repeated ethical compromises, and digital presenteeism. The labels matter less than understanding the mechanisms and choosing the appropriate intervention. In conclusion, I will launch 3 calls to action. For clinicians, first, screen systematically, not intuitively. The tool exists. Use them. For organization, redesign the work before people break. Workload, autonomy, and role clarity are prevention, not an option. And for all of us, occupational distress is not a personal failure. It's a signal that the system sends. Recognize it as such early. So you have on the presentation the selected references. You can go to these references and now Kate say hello. Thank you for your attention. So if you have questions, unfortunately I can't answer it now, but you can send me to my email, and you can also scan the QR code if you want to download the presentation. Thank you so much, and have a good meeting. regarde la fin, la réunion, c'est où? Rouge?